Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Henry from the Geek Speak Radio Show. We're here to review Paranormal Activity 3. I was going to do it yesterday as soon as I got back from the theater, but decided to sleep on it, think about it, and give you a full review after a full night's rest. So I did that. First word that comes to mind is uh-oh. And what I mean by that is no secret that for the past few years, the Halloween throne was occupied by Saw. Took 5 films, Saw 6, took 5 films for the audience to finally get tired of the same trick over and over. Now, I'm not saying the Paranormal Activity 3 is running out of tricks, but there are signs that the next one, because there's obviously going to be a next one. I mean, first of all, the record-breaking Friday, and it's expected to make over $50 million by Sunday night. So Paranormal Activity 4 is guaranteed for next year. No worries there, Paramount. But here's where you should worry, is there are fans of the franchise, of the story. It was a fun audience, not good audience, a fun audience that we saw it with last night. It was packed. The theater was packed all the way to the front. And this is a young audience that screamed at every little moment. Christy comes on or Christy runs by in the background. They scream. A bird chirps. They scream. There's a little reaction to everything. Kind of eases the tension for everybody else, but it also kind of throws off. They were screaming so loud in some parts that you couldn't hear the dialogue, and I think I missed something. In fact, I know there were some real fans like me in front that were saying "shh, quiet," because they were trying to listen to the dialogue. But there's too much screaming going on because a very tense scene is going on at the same time. It cuts back and forth between that very tense scene and the parents arguing over something, which I think gave some plot points, but again, people were screaming so loud that it was just hard to hear. A lot of the same tricks are back in this one that we've seen in the previous 2, including last year's biggest shock, the kitchen exploding thing. It's back here again. Has a little twist, but it's back again. The new gimmick is mounting a camera on an oscillating fan so that it goes around and around. There's actually a really, really good scene with a babysitter. I won't give that away either, but with a babysitter, it's one of the best scenes in this movie. Now, this movie, after having seen this one, I got to say, although a lot of you didn't, I got to say second is starting to be my favorite now. Paranormal Activity 2 is starting to be my favorite so far. This one is not bad, but it's not really good either. The ending is kind of confusing. I read a couple of reviews before I went to see it over the weekend that compared the ending to The Last Exorcism, the Ashley Bell movie from a year ago. Now that one it kind of made sense in the movie, in The Last Exorcism. In this one, it does have the same. It has a similar ending. I see the comparisons, but here it doesn't work. Mainly because the entire movie was marketed as you're going to find out the truth. You're going to find out the history of the activity, learn where the activity began. Let me tell you right off the bat, you're not going to know where the activity began. You don't learn. It's not even hinted at where the activity began in this film. The other thing I don't like is false advertising on Paramount's part. Last year or earlier this year, it just feels like last year, but earlier this year, when Rise of the Planet of the Apes came out, the teaser for Paranormal Activity 3 was attached to Planet of the Apes, and everybody got excited because, you remember it, the Bloody Mary scene. That's how it started, the 2 kids playing Bloody Mary, and then they walk out of there, and there's something standing there, and then it went to the title card. Everybody got excited because they thought, oh, that's going to be cool, Bloody Mary's involved in this. That scene isn't even in the movie. Bloody Mary's not in the film either. She is for the game, at least. The game is in there for about 3 minutes, but it doesn't really play a major important part. It has nothing to do with the history of why they're being haunted, because by the time they start playing the Bloody Mary game, the hauntings are already happening. Now, not only that scene, but there's a lot of scenes that you saw in following trailers that are not in the movie. There's lines of dialogue that you're expecting, but they're not in the movie. I'm being kind of hypocritical because on this week's show, Michael Uslan and I talked about how we both hate spoilers and all that. This one, it's not spoilers, but the teaser, did get it. That's what a teaser and trailers are for, to get us, to tease us into wanting to go see the movie. Seeing the fact that it's going to go back in time, it's going to show us the history of the activity, it's going to show us, and they hinted at, maybe it had something to do with the Bloody Mary game, made you excited to want to go see it and find this out. None of that is in this. It takes a turn at the very end into I'm honestly not even sure how to describe it. I don't know if it's a coven of witches, if it's devil worshippers, what it is. But the grandma has something to do with it, and it's not a shock because it was hinted at in the second Paranormal Activity that there was some kind of pact made with a demon, which is why it went for the firstborn, which is the baby in Paranormal Activity 2. Now, knowing that, they didn't have to really explain too much except show us how the pact was made or something close to that. It's not shown. It just, they go to grandma's house, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the night, there's a coven of witches there, or some human sacrifices being, or something's going on. And then it just turns really, really weird. And it ends. So it doesn't really answer anything, doesn't open it to questions or anything. They kind of painted themselves into a corner here, because when Paranormal Activity 4 comes out next year, now you have to go back and explain what the grandma's all about, what the coven or the devil worshippers or the satanic cult, whatever that is. You have to explain what that is now. You can't just leave it like that. Katie is adult Katie, I should say, is seen for a few minutes in the beginning, but then she's gone. You just see Christy and Katie as little kids. There's no mention of the baby. Remember the one that Demon Katie took at the end? There's no mention of him, no mention of their story. So you're still wondering where Demon Katie and the baby have gone. So they kind of painted themselves into a corner, like I said, with the fourth one. They have to go back and explain that weirdness at the end, and they still have to explain where Katie and the baby are. I gotta say, I'm not too pleased with this. It's kind of disappointing, quite honestly, this Paranormal Activity 3. And again, I'm a fan of this franchise. I like the first one, own it. Like the second one, although a lot of you didn't. I like the second one. This one, it's quite the opposite. I'm hearing and reading a lot of you love this one. It's the best of the series. I don't think so. And again, this is maybe because I'm not going into it like a roller coaster ride where I'm expecting to be scared and jump. I mean, they're there, but I'm also expecting some story, because the second one introduced a story, and I like that about the fact that it introduced a little backstory to the characters. And this time they just forget about all that and say, hey, let's just make them jump. So if they're gonna do a fourth one, obviously they kind of painted themselves into a corner. So there you go. Without too many spoilers, there's your review of Paranormal Activity 3. This time produced by Oren Peli, who was the creator and writer and director of the first one. This time around it was directed by Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman. Out in theaters now. Paramount's Paranormal Activity 3.